February 12, 2019 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer. Here. Mr. Ansello. Here. Mr. Baroff. Here. Ms. Boyce. Mr. Brew. Here. President Carbone.
Here.
Mrs. Conley.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mrs. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mrs. Draw.
Here.
Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Fleigler Mitchell. Ms. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Howland.
Here.
Ms. Cayley.
Here.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Marinetti.
Here.
Mr. Michike.
Here.
Mr. Morelli.
Here.
Mr. Moyo.
Here.
Mr. Rockow.
Here.
Mr. Shepard is excused. Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Terp.
Here.
Mr. Wilcox.
Here.
Mr. Wilt.
Here.
Mr. Zale.
Here.
Thank you. Please stay seated. I'd like to introduce Sister Christine Wagner of the Sisters of St. Joseph, who has been invited by Legislator Cynthia Tolman to lead us in a moment of prayer.
Thank you, and thank you for the privilege of being here and to pray with you this evening for a moment. I'd also like to thank Ms. Cayley for the invitation to be here. It's my neighbor. So I ask you to pause just a moment and find a quiet interior place for yourself. Gracious God, we come before you tonight with gratitude and humility. We are grateful for the many gifts given us. Gifts of family, ability, education, safety and shelter, and community. For these gifts and so many others, we give thanks. And we are humbled by the responsibility given us to care for the residents of Monroe County to the best of our ability. Gracious God, please help each member of this assembly to listen with open minds and hearts, to keep in mind the most vulnerable of our neighbors, and to legislate with empathy, to hold in highest priority our common good and surrender prejudices and bias, to work to secure the resources necessary for Monroe County to be a healthy and safe community, to honor those in our community who sacrifice every day to keep us safe and secure, emergency workers, healthcare workers, members of the armed forces, police, and sheriff's department, and many, many others who are in service every day. Above all, we ask that we are all mindful that actions we take in our community have the potential to impact our region, our state, our country, and our world. May we all remember that we are global citizens, one humanity, that we travel together this road of life, and are responsible for each other in profound ways. May we use our personal gifts and talents for the good of all and trust that we will have God's grace to live humbly and lovingly every day. God bless this assembly and our community. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister. Here's a certificate. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Please stand as Legislator John Lightfoot will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I ask you to remain standing. Without objection, we will take agenda item number 27 out of the regular agenda order. Agenda number 27 is moved by Legislator Marionetti and seconded by Legislator Cayley. Will the clerk please read the resolution in memoriam for Jeffrey Farrell, employee of Monroe County Department of Environmental Services?
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Jeffrey Farrell, employee of Monroe County Department of Environmental Services. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deepest sympathy at the recent passing of Jeffrey Farrell, employee of Monroe County Department of Environmental Services. And whereas Jeffrey Farrell passed away suddenly on January 18, 2019 at the age of 30. And whereas Jeffrey Farrell was born November 27, 1988 to Thomas and Carol Farrell in Gates and was a lifelong resident of Monroe County, graduating from Gates Chile High School. He began working for Monroe County Department of Environmental Services in August of 2018. Jeffrey began his career at Rochester Gas and Electric before he came to the county. And whereas Jeffrey was an avid fan of hockey, especially the Pittsburgh Penguins, he enjoyed going to as many hockey games as possible. He also loved to play recreationally and taught children how to skate so they could love the sport as much as he did. And whereas Jeffrey was predeceased by his grandparents, Carol K. Farrell and Sam and Teresa Catelli, and his uncle, Joseph P. Piazza. He is survived by his parents, Thomas and Carol, sisters Tina and Elizabeth, grandfather, Willard Farrell, niece and nephews, Olivia and Ethan Cotterone and Colin Smith, and many more friends and family members. And whereas Jeffrey's fun personality and kindness will be missed by all who knew him, including friends, relatives, and the whole Monroe County family. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby directed to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted unanimously, with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Please stay standing as we observe a moment of silence for Ken Moore, former Monroe County employee, Vietnam veteran, who also recently passed away. Your copy of the Journal of Day 1, January 8, 2019 is available on your tablet. Without exception, the Journal will stand approved as submitted. There is a hearing loop in place tonight to assist those who are hearing impaired. Anyone requiring assistance should inquire in the clerk's office.
If you have a cellular phone, pager, or other electronic device in your possession, I would request that you make it inaudible for the duration of the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation.
Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on your tablet as well as online. There are no proclamations scheduled this evening. There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold the public forum. We have several people registered to address the legislature. Mr. Clerk.
If you require assistance, a deputy is available to assist you in approaching the lectern. I will call 3 people forward at one time. Each speaker will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature, and kindly conclude your remarks when the timer sounds and exit through the rear of the chambers. Thank you for your cooperation. Our first 3 speakers are Karen Spottin, Jonathan Dahlhoff, and Janet Rosenberg.
Hello, my name is Karen Spottin. In December, after County Executive Dinolfo declared there was a crisis in early intervention children's special education services, she and Dr. Jeff Kazarowski traveled to Albany to plead the case for Monroe County. We applaud and appreciate your time and effort in this manner, County Executive. However, results were insignificant. Yes, the state of New York is responsible for service rates in birth to 5, but Monroe County is responsible for setting the reimbursement rates for children 3 to 5 years of age for related services such as OT, PT, and speech. And they also cover costs in birth to 3. I'm here to tell you how to significantly end the hemorrhaging of providers from these systems, which prevents children from receiving services due to the disgustingly low rates of reimbursement from Monroe County. It is very difficult to find dollar amounts spent on services in the county budget, but by examining the state aid reimbursement for educating handicapped children, which is line item 404115, and knowing what the amount of state reimbursement is, I was able to figure out what is spent in Monroe County for birth to 5 services. I am here to tell you that our request for a 30% increase equates to $4 million. The county executive has declared this to be a crisis, and this is how you can assist in ending this crisis. I also know that Monroe County has closed some local developmental corporations and has cash on hand. Enough cash, in fact, to solve this crisis. So once I will say, the county and the county executive have declared special education services birth to 5 to be in crisis. You are able to do your part by appropriating $4 million to help end this crisis. Is there responsibility on the part of New York State? Yes, and we are also advocating at that level, as are you. But the county needs to allocate $4 million that you have in your coffers. Remember, they are our children in Monroe County not receiving services. Each one of them has a legal document developed through protections granted by the federal and state law. The county is, in essence, violating the civil rights of children not receiving services. $4 million, it is there, and it needs to be allocated to children with needs. You have declared it a crisis. This could be approved within a month. Remember, it is a crisis. We truly appreciate your first steps, but we are appealing you to do more since you have the power.
My name is Janet Rosenberg. I'm a physical therapist working in the Monroe County Early Intervention Program. First, I want to thank all of you for the steps that you have taken to date to help address the crisis in the Birth to 5 program. We do appreciate your attention to the crisis with childhood services in Monroe County. I do, however, want to be sure you understand there is a capacity wait list for children in early intervention. To explain, these are children who received their early intervention evaluations, were found to be eligible for ongoing services, have a legal document called an IFSP, and are now waiting for services due to a shortage of providers in all disciplines: PT, OT, speech, teacher of the deaf, and special education. Some children currently on the capacity wait list have been waiting since last March, August, September, and October of 2018. The rights of the children in your zip codes are being violated. Currently, we have 148 children waiting for some type of service. This number is up 196% from February 2018, when we had 50 children on the wait list. I am going to list all the zip codes with children currently waiting for services. I ask that you consider acknowledging the zip codes you represent in any way you feel comfortable. 14605, 14606, 14607, 14608, 14609, 14611, 14612, 14613, 14615, 14616, 14617, 14618, 14619, 14620, 14621, 14622, 14623, 14624, 14626, 14420, 14428, 14464, 14468, 14534, 14546, 14559, and 14580. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Jonathan Dahlhoff, Larry Crawford, and Mary Chevelis.
Good evening, Dr. Bowman, Executive Donato, and County Legislators. My name is Larry Crawford, and I come to you as a member of SOAR, Sheriff's Office Association of Retirees. I worked in the Monroe County Sheriff's Office as a deputy for 26 years, from 1978 to 2004. Through my years with the department, I watched our unions negotiating our contracts. Through the mid-80s to the early 90s, I recall contracts being settled by your predecessors with raises, increases of 4 and 5%. In the late 90s through the present time, it seems there were times that we were 3 or 4 years without a contract, with a big battle on medical benefits. In 1994 to 2008, contracts were settled with the average of 1.7% per year, just near the cost of living rate. These contracts were settled with such low raise increase because the unions were attempting to keep our medical benefits to remain the same, which your predecessors and you promised. As I retired in 2004, this was my last contract, but to what I understand, negotiations continue going this way. Over the years, how much do you think Monroe County saved by promising that medical benefits would remain the same? And what kind of forum do you think you have created for future negotiations with our unions when history shows that Monroe County does not keep their word? You have come up with the idea that $600 a year should be able to buy a plan to cover most retirees. But you also need to remember that you are talking about 6 people over 65 years old, which have a lot of these individuals have come down with different medical issues. I have spoken with several other individuals that the insurance companies have quoted them $250 per month or $3,000 a year for their plan to cover their needs. Last but not least, we just had a 40-year-old retiree pass away from a heart attack. It has been brought to my attention that his family was notified by the county stating his 2 children, ages 16 and 18, are no longer covered by medical benefits, even though they're not through with school. For someone that worked 25 years and always paid for his family plan medical insurance, seems this is the coverage his family should receive now, as they did before. Thank you.
Our next 3 speakers are Cynthia Tolman, James Youngman, and Tracy Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Tolman. I've been here many times before. I'm a pediatric speech-language pathologist, and I'm the director and CEO of a local business, Clinical Associates of the Finger Lakes. We provide evaluation and therapy support services to children in EI and in preschool. I would be remiss if I did not thank those of you to whom I have spoken with at meetings and over the phone and have corresponded with via email. I really appreciate the actions taken so far on behalf of the Early Intervention Program with the state, and I look forward to continuing this partnership. But we also need your help here at the county level with preschool reimbursement rates. The list of counties that pay more for preschool speech, OT, and PT has grown. Niagara County now joins Erie, Genesee, Ontario, Orleans, Seneca, Wayne, Wyoming, and Yates counties, and paying more than Monroe does. Please reappropriate money from one part of the budget to another in order to increase the rates for preschool speech, occupational, and physical therapy in Monroe County. I'm here to ask that this legislature put the children in EI and preschool first and continue to work together for the betterment of the children in our community. Meanwhile, the wait lists continue to grow in early intervention and in preschool. We need your help and your action now. Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to start by asking everyone who's in a wonderful maroon-ish shirt to please stand. And I would ask the legislative body to please turn around and acknowledge all of the faces that are in the back of the room. My name is Tracy Taylor, and I'm an occupational therapist and supervisor with 25 plus years of experience in early intervention. I have spoken to you many times in the past about the importance of early intervention rate increases and of late service coordination. I am back again tonight to give you an update on the service coordination crisis in Monroe County. Spoiler alert, it's not over. While we avoided the crisis of a wait list for referrals for early intervention, we have now created another ongoing crisis. Children continue to be found eligible for services in the early intervention program, and that is a good thing. Some people tonight will talk about the lack of current therapy providers and why families are waiting months and months on a 148-person wait list. I'm going to talk about how every single service coordinator in this county is above capacity and the number of families they have for ongoing service coordination that they serve. There are county service coordinators right now on medical leave, and their caseloads have to be absorbed by the people that are already short-staffed. There is no way for them to keep up with the mandated state guidelines for IFSPs, reviews, meetings, monthly updates with providers, going on visits with providers, returning calls and emails, and entering all of this data into the billing system. There are too many families, not enough service coordinators, and not enough time. I asked our staff for a list of ongoing issues with service coordination, and I've compiled these into the handouts that I am providing for you tonight. One very consistent fact that continues to come up is that parents do not know who their service coordinator is, and many families have had several service coordinator changes in the past year, with no update by phone or letter to who the new person has been assigned to them. 3 supervisors at Step by Step, myself included, are trying to help with this crisis by becoming ongoing service coordinators. Yes, in addition to being a therapist and a supervisor, I will now also be a service coordinator, and on top of that, the supervisor for the service coordinators at our agency. While trying to help the crisis at the county level, I will be taken away from providing ongoing therapy services for children and families, as well as being taken away from providing quality supervision to the therapists that I supervise. We have already spent countless hours training, reading manuals, setting up our ongoing service coordination billing, emails, phone calls, and in-person meetings. There is still an ongoing crisis. We need more county positions approved for service coordinators. This crisis is not going to go away. Thank you for your time.
Our next 3 speakers are Jazmin Reglar, Elizabeth Hebert, and Heather Hansen.
Hello, my name is Jazmin Reglar. I'm representing St. Joseph's House of Hospitality. I've been coming here since September. I was going to continue to speak about this room and how things need to change in this room, but I feel like there is a more pressing issue that needs to be addressed. The homelessness in this county is out of control, and the county is doing absolutely nothing about it. Friday night when I worked shelter at St. Joe's, I called DHS after hours. I called them 10 times. I left 2 or 3 messages, and I never received a call back. St. Joe's is over capacity with men that we are filling in our shelter. We are only supposed to take 19 men, and we've gone over capacity within our first week. Yesterday, I worked shelter, and I called DHS after hours because, again, we were over capacity. This time, the mailbox was full, so I couldn't even leave a message. There are people out here in the cold needing a place to go, and the county is not even providing the proper services for these people to be housed. Another issue that happened last week, I helped a woman get into a shelter. She was placed in a shelter for one night. I was told that the shelter does have a bed that she can be in, but she needed to go to DSS and get placed by them. The woman, she just lost her job, so she's receiving $200 a week in unemployment. She went down to DSS. They told her if she wanted to stay in a shelter, she would have to pay $32 a day to stay in a shelter. So say this woman just needed 1 month to get herself together. She would pay the shelter $960 to stay in a shelter. That's more than my rent. My rent is $625, and here we are charging homeless people, whether or not they have income, more than a person would pay to stay in their own home. Something needs to be done. No one should have to pay, no matter how much money they have, no one should have to pay to stay in a shelter. And if they do, it should not be more than what a person's rent is. Things need to change. You guys are responsible. It says on the county website that the legislators are responsible for implementing laws that affect the county. The laws that you guys are implementing are affecting the county in a very negative way. It's probably helping 1% of you, which is everyone sitting over there. You probably have low property taxes, but look at the rest of the county. They need help, and you may be shaking your head, but you're still not helping us. So you can shake your head and say no to that, but where is the help? Can you say something to that now? Since you wanted to answer me and say that, no, your property taxes aren't low, how are you helping the poor? Can I please get a response, since you wanted to respond to me when I was wrong? So can you please give me a response and say how you were helping the poor, how you were helping the homeless? And may I remind this group, which I will bring up every time I come here. The first time I came to this meeting last September, this room kicked out all the black and brown people because there were not enough seats. The next month, the very next month, we strategized and we got here early so we could fill the seats. All white people were standing up and you let them stay in the room. The most blatant act of racism in this room, and it needs to stop. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Liz Hebert. I'm the Program Director for Occupational Therapy Program at Nazareth College. I've been a service provider for Monroe County Early Intervention for over 20 years and have spent my whole professional career of over 40 years working with young children with special needs and their families. And I continue to have a small EI caseload since beginning at NAS. At Nazareth, I'm involved with preparation of the occupational therapy students in the classroom and clinically. And of course, that includes coursework related to working with young children and families. I believe we've provided them with a good background to enter the arena of early intervention and preschool. And many of the students would like to work in early intervention and preschool. The OT program tends to attract students mostly from Western New York, so many from Monroe County. We've had, the program's relatively new, so we've only had 3 graduating classes so far, but about 3/4 of the students remain in this Western New York area after graduation. However, they also graduate with a very large debt. From a survey of OT graduates from 2017, half reported they graduated with debts of over $80,000. So essentially that means they cannot work in early intervention because the salaries are lower than in other OT positions in the area. So Monroe County is losing potential providers with a good, solid background who could be filling the void of EI providers. And of course, this isn't only true of occupational therapy, but physical therapy, speech therapy, and early childhood graduates. So as you've heard, the literature strongly supports that early and intensive services can really have lifelong consequences, and I've seen this through my years of practice. I watch children that are now adults grow up, move on in life, and really have an improved quality of life. So as you've heard from all my colleagues, we're asking for an increase in rates so that we can fill this void of EI providers to meet the needs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Good evening. My name is Heather Hansen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Step by Step. I'm here today to say thank you to those of you who attended the roundtable with us a few weeks ago to learn about the complexities and intricacies of the early intervention and preschool special education system. Thank you to those of you who attended NISAC and advocated for early intervention to be part of the agenda. Thank you to those of you who have written and or signed resolutions to Albany encouraging reform at the state level. Thank you for these actions. However, if you really are committed to stabilizing the early childhood service system in Monroe County, you need to do more. Please consider things that are your direct responsibility and under your direct control. Number one, there are 148 children on a capacity list with the county early intervention program waiting to receive therapy services that they are legally entitled to. This is the county's responsibility, and the county is in violation of state and federal law by not providing these services within the mandated timeframes. Number two, there are a number of administrative inefficiencies with how the county health department operates with the early intervention program, adding to the burden and financial risk that companies like mine take, making us unable to recoup as much of the cost from commercial insurance as we could, or preventing us from getting paid in a timely and consistent fashion. Please continue to have conversations with us about these inefficiencies and consider ways to remedy the system. Number three, the county can hire additional service coordinators to ameliorate the burden on the county service coordinators, handle the true volume of children in the early intervention system, and help correct the numerous challenges that therapy providers have with accessing and working with service coordinators. Number four, preschool special education rates for related services, including PT, OT, and speech, are directly set by this legislature. These rates are as much of a problem as the state set rates. These rates need to significantly increase in order to bring them to the current market value for skilled providers delivering these services. Please continue to engage with us to truly understand the systems and steps that the Monroe County Legislature can take to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Kathy Alban, Elizabeth Lyme, and Jamie Edwards.
Hello, my name is Kathy Alban. I'm a speech-language pathologist. I've worked in this area since 2002 with early intervention and preschool students. I specialize in something called assistive technology, which means that I work with the most intensive needs of our children in this community. I help the children who don't have a voice, who don't have the ability to use their own voice to communicate. We come up with alternative strategies to help them. We use pictures. If they're blind, we use objects, and we help them use those to manipulate to express themselves. I've worked with families who have a multitude of disabilities. I've worked with families who have children who are deaf. I've worked with children who have autism, who are blind, who are physically disabled and require 24-hour nursing care. These children are on that same wait list as any other child who a parent may have concerns that they're not kicking a ball correctly, or that they're not drawing correctly with their fingers. All of these are concerns for our kids as they develop. We need our kids to be able to communicate. We need them to be able to walk and to talk. But all of these children on this wait list, no matter who they are, some of these children need help learning how to eat correctly. They can't wait. They can't wait months. We need you to be their heroes. I need you to close your eyes and to imagine someone in your family or immediate family, friends, neighborhood who has a child who is not developing in the typical way. Now imagine looking that parent in the eyes and telling them, I'm sorry, we have money available, but it's not important enough to us right now to give it to your child to help them develop. These are the critical years, these kids in early intervention and preschool. If we can hit them now, I've worked with children where people think, oh, well, maybe they won't ever talk, maybe they won't ever walk. And by receiving the services at a young age, we are able to help their development, and they go on to live wonderful lives. full of communication opportunities, and it starts with you. We need your support, and we thank you for what you've done, but please don't look the other way. Please don't look at your cell phone. Please don't think about something else. We need you to think about our children today. Thank you.
Dr. Carbone, members of the legislature, I am so very grateful for your service in our community. I am Dr. Elizabeth Lyme, an ethicist at MCC for the past 25 years. Over 9,000 students have gone through my classroom. I'm especially grateful for the support this body has given our students in the college over many, many decades. As you may have read or heard, 88% of our 700 faculty and staff, Monroe County taxpayers, have voted no confidence in our president, Dr. Kress. Here is why. Under Dr. Kress's direction, the administration has violated our mutually agreed upon contract at least 13 times. These are not 13 violations of a single part of the contract. At her direction, administrators have violated sections of our contract in Article 6 and Article 27, Article 32, Article 40, Article 46, Article 49, Article 53, and Article 54. I am sure, just like me, you continue to value the very positive profile of MCC that President Kress nurtures to the greater community. However, this body has appointed 5 trustees who are contractually obligated to evaluate the performance of Dr. Kress. My request is that you hold these trustees you appointed accountable for their obligation to uphold the contract by evaluating Dr. Kress's performance, using measures at least as rigorous as the measures by which I'm evaluated. Thank you for your time and your ongoing support of this vital institution, which truly is an engine for Monroe County's prosperity.
Hello, my name is Jamie Edwards. I've been here many times before. I'm a pediatric speech-language pathologist. I'm also a supervisor at Step by Step. I supervise 7 SLPs working with children birth to 3 in the early intervention program. I went to Albany last Monday as part of the Children's Agenda Advocacy Day. I spoke to Harry Bronson regarding the EI crisis. The waiting list for EI services has increased from 13 children in January of last year to 133 in January of this year. And we now know that it is 148 currently. This includes children waiting for speech, feeding, occupational therapy, physical therapy, teacher of the deaf, and special education. That is 148 children waiting for critical services. Being in Rochester and so close to Strong, we have many babies discharged from the NICU who need feeding services. The waiting list is not based on severity of need. These babies do not get priority. According to my colleague, feeding specialist Stacia Paganelli, a parent struggling to feed their infant or toddler who may wait up to 4 months on the waiting list has to manage over 500 meals without any professional advice or support. Right now, a 2-year-old is spinning in circles in his living room with no effective way to communicate that he is hungry. He's peeling and eating paint off of his wall. He's throwing and mouthing toys versus playing with his parents. How do I know this? Because I just evaluated him over a week ago. And what did the service coordinator say when we had his meeting? I'm sorry. There is a capacity list. The county is responsible for finding you a provider within 30 days, but at this time, there is a shortage. So your child is going on what is called a capacity list. There are over 140 children. As soon as we find a provider, I will let you know. Brain size doubles during the first year, and by age 3, a child's brain has nearly reached its adult weight. Children quadruple the number of words they know between 1 and 2. The wait-and-see approach is outdated. It's my understanding that all of you here today know that this is about the children, and we must work together for the children and families in Monroe County. The stakes could not be higher for these fragile babies, young children, and their families. The county is out of compliance. It's the county's responsibility to make sure children who are eligible for EI services get the services they need within 30 days. Also, I do outpatient speech therapy at Step by Step's clinic, and it's insurance and private based. I just had a family come in. Child is 16 months old, diagnosed at 15 months as failure to thrive, not accepting any meals, and is therefore not gaining any weight, which is why he received that diagnosis. The mom called the number 753 Kids, and the person on the phone said, "Well, I don't think your child will qualify for services." Imagine calling 753 Kids and not even getting in for an evaluation. And we're seeing this more and more because the county is stressed and they don't want to take in new referrals. It's like as if I was calling 753 Nope. Nope, we don't want to take care of you. I'm asking you to amend the 2019 budget to specifically support the county service coordination problem. There are skilled service coordinators that have been laid off that could be hired back on. I'm asking you to use emergency funds, and I'm asking you to continue to work with therapists and business owners and advocates and talk about the mechanics to help you craft the legislation. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Kristen Rogers, Asia Adams, and Michelle Beam.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Rogers, and I'm the Advocacy Coordinator for the Children's Agenda. I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of our youngest citizens in regards to their lawful right to receive early intervention and preschool special education services. As you are aware, funding for early intervention is controlled by New York State. The Children's Agenda is advocating at that level to obtain rate increases that we believe will alleviate provider shortages. And we thank you, the county, for joining us in that effort. However, we need these same rate increases for preschool special education, and that is where you, the county, are accountable. The county is responsible for setting preschool special education-related services rates. Much like early intervention, there are children, several of them in Rochester, Greece, and throughout the county, sitting on preschool special education wait lists due to provider shortages. If the county is truly committed to improving early childhood developmental services, then you need to substantially increase reimbursement rates, especially since they have not been raised within the past 10 years. Our community is failing to provide these children with services in a timely manner, as mandated by the Individual with Disabilities Education Act. So in regards to preschool special education rates, the ball, county, is in your court. It's time for you to shoot the game-winning shot. We ask that you please raise related services rates right away so children get the critical services that they need. Kids can no longer wait. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone looked like a safe trip getting here. My name is Asa Adams. I'm a child of the Civil Rights Movement and alumni of the Black Panther Party movement out of Atlanta, Georgia. Why I'm here in Rochester? Well, this is my second home. I had someone do research on Monroe County for me. Now I'm not going to really talk to the legislative body. I'm going to talk to the folks in the gallery. Something different. Ladies and gentlemen, it's online. The reason why a lot of you guys can't get your funding and why Mr. Norfolk keeps saying that she's giving tax cuts, they have reached the ceiling. A lot of y'all don't know it. So they can't give you a tax cut. Really, if you look at it the correct way, because it's embezzlement. But to make a long story short, they have to cut programs from somewhere else to move money to somewhere else. This is why a lot of you guys are not being funded correctly, which means lie too. I do not know how you guys in the back are letting the folks on the left get away with this. This is the Democrats, aren't they? Don't say nothing to anyone. Because if they're not, they're acting like the old Democrats that I knew in the South, full of lies. Now, I'm going to talk to you folks. Get this thing right, because change is inevitable. The same thing that I faced during the 50s that these folks are talking about, the children, was the same thing the Panther Party and the Civil Rights Movement was based on then. Here we are 55 years later, repeating the same scenario? Is my great-grandchildren going to have to sit down to this body and do the same thing again? I don't understand you folks. You live in the county, and they're talking about they're not raising taxes. Well, they can't anyway, like I said. But they can't cut them either. So they have to shove money around. I call it the Texas two-step, Mr. Norfolk. Whoever decides to run against you, I am going to give them all the information that they need to remove you from this body. And I mean it with the bottom and the last breath in my heart. And you and I know each other very well. But what I'm learning about this body, the dead will get up and be mad. George Eastman would turn in his grave by what he would see if this was correct. Because he was about children too. Get this thing right. The homeless is hurting themselves. And that problem is not going to get any lighter because guess what? These children coming out of high school. No hope. The homeless rate going to get higher. The children they have are going to have the same problems these folks talking about. It's simple. It all boils down to the children in no other shape, size, and form because they're going to grow up and be adults. Somebody's going to have to take care of them. Wake up. It's time to stop the status quo thinking. We're all old. It's time for new blood in this assembly. I hate to say it, but it is. These children need to be come up here. They could probably get it correct better than we can. And trust me, like I said the last time I was here, I am one of you guys because I did make $80,000, $90,000 a year. But now I'm seeing what it is to be poor. Like I said the last time, I spent 6 nights on solid concrete in front of the Cadillac Hotel. It took me 2.5 months just to get my bearings back together. This has got to stop. These folks are not lying. Get it right. And Mr. Norfolk, if you can't find the money, please tell them the truth. We all can handle the truth. Am I correct, everyone?
Okay, please summarize. Thank
you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michelle Beam, and you've heard from a lot of professionals today about the early intervention crisis. I don't have more facts or figures or suggestions for how to solve that crisis, but I'm here as the face of a family who receives services. My second child was born profoundly deaf. I was living in Indiana at the time, receiving early intervention services there. Very good experience. I moved here for the reputation that Monroe County has for deaf services. To my surprise, I'm having to come here before you tonight, step away from my 2 children, and talk to you about why has this issue been neglected for 15 plus years. I work as a professional in the deaf services arena, and I'm shocked to see that we cannot retain any qualified professionals, master's degree, trained, leveled professionals to service our deaf children. We have 1 teacher of the deaf left. I'm fortunate enough that I moved right in time to get on her waiting list, but she also works full-time at Brighton School District, so I've not met with her for 4 months because we cannot get the scheduling right. Can I switch to a different teacher of the deaf who would have a better scheduling with me? No, I cannot. Deafness is hereditary in my family. I want to continue to have more kids. Am I going to have to move again? Because if I have a third and he can't get access to aids, or he's just going to be waitlisted, or she would decide, this is a hypothetical child, but still, Like, I'm concerned about that. I just moved here for this reputation. So I just wanted to come before you today to put a face to the families that are represented, to the children that are represented. I know we don't have to convince you that we need to invest in kids. I mean, I wouldn't think we'd have to convince you that investing in kids is the way to go. I didn't think we'd have to convince you that 0 to 5 is the most critical time for their development. So I just implore you to continue to work with the professionals and listen to what they have to say, because we need to be able to retain quality professionals in this field. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Julie Oppa, Tyrone Hodge, and Whitney Sinkovitz.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Julie Oppa. I'm a physical therapist that works in the early intervention and preschool programs, and I'm also here as a parent of a child that was in the preschool program. My son, when he was quite young, went through a number of health challenges that were quite difficult for us as a family, and at the same time he was going through behavioral issues and also learning problems, and so he struggled at home and he struggled at daycare, and we as parents really needed answers and we needed his support. So we sought the preschool system and got an evaluation, and it was so comprehensive. It gave us so much information as parents, his strengths, his needs, how to help him grow. He received speech therapy and occupational therapy. This was back, he's 12 now, this was back when he was 4. So we were able to receive services at the time, and he grew in profound ways. And entered kindergarten with little to no support. And we were profoundly grateful for that strong start. The school district was able to use what they learned from that evaluation in preschool and really gear his education all the way up through. And he's currently 12 years old in Hilton, successful, gifted, and just amazing. As a provider, I get to see these life-changing events happen every day. It's quite an honor and a privilege, and there's not enough of me to go around. I'm saying no every day, and it's hard. So your impact and your advocacy and your support is important, life-changing, and it will affect generations to come. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tyrone Hodge, and I'm a part of a committee, the Homeless Union Committee, and also in association with the House of Mercy, Sister Grace. I found an interesting book that I was reading recently, and it's entitled "The Soul of Politics," and it's written by James Wallace and the author and New York Times bestseller, God's Politics. I'm not familiar too much with politics and how they operate, but I became interested not too long ago with watching debates and how they conduct those debates. And I found something interesting in the book while I was reading it, that it stated the illustration of the game of politics in finding enough dirt on the other person as to be a strategy that is effective. As I watched the debates, I remembered the debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and how the issues was mainly about emails and reality shows and episodes and stuff like that. I started to think to myself that are we in need of a reform? I find myself on this committee, and I find myself also sort of in a fight and have a relation with the issues that you guys you're in a fight well. And one of our major things that we look at is the sanctions. A lot of people, they ask us, why do you fight? Why do you fight for the sanctions? You know, it's a borderline of whether you're enabling someone to do something or you actually helping them. But we got to look back again at our strategies and seeing whether they work or not. You know, I too look at this city and look to see that it is trying to accomplish, you know, being supportive to every need and to make this city prosperous. And I believe one of the major strategy is to, if I were to come to Rochester as an investor and see how the unfortunate are treated, you know, that would kind of determine to me whether I want to live here or even invest there. So I'm thinking that the best strategy is to take care of your unfortunate people, and you will see the difference. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney Sinkovitz. I'm a speech-language pathologist that works with children in the early intervention and preschool systems. I'm also a specialist that works with children that are deaf and hard of hearing, many of whom are on that wait list that's been mentioned tonight because they're not receiving the services they're eligible to receive. Every single day, I'm responsible for supporting the children and their families in this county to reach their greatest potential, arming them with strategies and opportunities to learn new skills and try new things in a safe and trusting environment. People often ask, do you have kids? But my reply is always the same, not of my own, but the current kid count is 27. And that's growing. While I'm a teacher by nature, I'm also a learner. Children are constantly teaching me new lessons about myself, my therapy, what works and what doesn't, when to stop the planned and take advantage of the natural opportunities that present themselves in everyday life. There are no bad days in my job, certainly ones that require more patience than others, but I'm always able to find at least one progress, big or small, and that is the greatest blessing. In light of Valentine's Day this week, I'd like to share with you a bit of what my kids and I have been exploring in our sessions. We've been talking about what it means to be a good friend, what love can look and feel like, and what it means to have a full and happy heart. My favorite answer this week was, eating snacks makes my heart happy. Luke, while I don't disagree with you, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper. Take a look around tonight. Look behind you. Look at those who have dedicated themselves to providing for the children of our county. For all of us here, and many that couldn't make it, early intervention and the support network it provides fills our hearts in ways we can't put into words. I've been present when a child says or signs their first word, hands me a picture to communicate a message, responds to their name with wearing hearing aids or cochlear implants, and so much more. These things, this progress, the children and these families are what make my heart full, and this job makes my heart happy. I ask you tonight to support those whose hearts have been full by being able to provide this service like me. To support the families whose hearts have been full because they're witnessing their children's progress and successes. Think of the hearts of our children when they realize that they're capable. That sense of pride and independence is the greatest gift that we can give them. And then I ask you to consider the hearts of those providers who struggle to make ends meet on a monthly basis because of pathetic reimbursement rates that haven't changed in over 20 years. Or those who have been forced to choose a different career path for the only reason that they cannot continue to provide for their own families on this salary and this workload. We are tired and we are stressed and we need your help. Please consider the hearts of families that are told that they need to wait, that their children have to wait. Those are the ones that really need us. Those hearts are not happy, they're not full, and perhaps they are breaking like mine. You have the power to change that narrative. This job is the best job in the world. It makes my heart happy and it makes my heart full, but it is not sustainable at this point. I love what I do. I will continue to show up every single day for the families I serve until I'm told I cannot do so. Please show up for us. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Doug Moffitt, Allie Dettinger, and Bridget Hurley.
County Executive, Deputy County Executive, President Carbone, and the legislative body, and distinguished guests. This is already the second month of 10 months before we have the November election on November 5th, 2019. Some of the new deserving candidates will be very happy and elated upon the victories. But some legislators will be very unhappy and mad at their political party. The same Republican Party that we have devoted our lives and upheld has failed the Monroe County Sheriff's Office retirees on their legally negotiated medical retirement contracts. Be advised, there will be a very big turnout in 2019. And the reason it will be is because of the county executive race. As I stated a few months ago to this legislative body, the 30,000 swing votes in 2016 was not a fluke. And it's not too late for you having that fluke. Legislate for the good of the people, not for your party. That's who you were elected to represent. Thank you and God bless.
Good evening. I want to start by thanking, I can't see if Commissioner Crossdale is here, but the DHS Commissioner and the administration for releasing a new child care manual. Anyone in the room who's interested in learning more about the county's child care programs, I really recommend that you check it out. It's on the county website. It's very helpful. I am here tonight just to fill you in a little bit on things that we're working on at the state level that are not actually related to early intervention and preschool special education. I feel like you've heard enough about that tonight, and there are some other things that are really important as well. So I'm just going to fill you in on a couple. Raise the age, obviously, is a big concern of all of ours because it's an important opportunity for youth, and it's also a potential expense for the county that we're trying to avoid. So at this point, the governor has proposed a 100% increase in raise the age funding for services and expenses. So there's $200 million in his budget for raise the age, and obviously we support that and are constantly reminding the state leaders that we want 100% reimbursement for county expenses. Our Nurse Family Partnership Program, which is a really important program here in Monroe County for children, young children and their families, is flat funded at $3 million. Now, there's a lot of other funding sources for NFP that also go up and down, but rest assured we are trying to press the state to increase funding for the Nurse Family Partnership Program. And that's $3 million statewide, so it's really not a lot of money, and there should be more. And child care, the governor put $26 million in his executive budget just to hold steady. There is going to be an increase in the rates provided to providers in the child care subsidy system because their costs obviously have gone up. Every 3 years they do a market rate study and increase costs if needed. And so that's terrific, but it's flat. It's basically no increase in slots. And it also, by the way, doesn't include any extra funding. That's just for ROS, rest of state. It does not cover New York City. So he's also requesting that every Regional Economic Development Council include childcare in its 2019 plan. So that's terrific. Certainly support that. I'll leave you just with a thought. There was absolutely no funding in the governor's executive budget for the expenses of preparing for the 2020 census. Young children are the age group that's most undercounted in censi. And so we're really concerned about that. We were hoping for $40 million to train agencies to community-based agencies to inform their constituents and their participants that the census is coming. It does not take into account immigration status. So We definitely want to make sure that every person in Monroe County gets counted by the census in 2020 because it determines our lots of funding and our congressional, how many congressional districts we have. So I ask you to join us in making sure that we count every child in Monroe County in the census. Thank you.
I'll now recall James Youngman, Mary Chevelis, Allie Dentinger. This concludes the public forum.
At this time, we'll recess the February 12, 2019 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature and convene the Pure Waters Administrative Board for the Rochester Pure Waters District. Mr. Clerk, please note the attendance and read the first item on the agenda.
PWAB Agenda Item Number 1, Referral 19-011.
Moved by Legislator Brew, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. All in favor? Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
PWAB Agenda Item Number 2, Referral 19-0025.
Moved by Legislator Brew, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. All in favor? Any opposed? Item carries. We will now recess the Pure Waters District and adjourn the Pure Waters Administrative Board. The February 12, 2019 meeting of the Legislature is reconvened. We will now proceed with the consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda? Legislator Marionetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to make a motion that we consider all remaining items on the agenda with one vote, with the exception of agenda items number 20 and 22.
Second.
We have a motion moved by Legislator Marionetti, seconded by Legislator Cayley. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, which will be item number
20. We have item number 20, Referral 19-0021.
moved by Legislator DeFlorio, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to make an amendment to this motion.
Second.
Have a second?
Who's the second? Second. Seconded by Legislator Moyo.
Thank you. I'll wait a moment while it's passed out. Well, like I said it was going to. Mr. President?
Okay, we've got an amendment made by Legislator Baroff, seconded by Legislator Moyo. Discussion?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm assuming that everyone has a copy of this amendment. It's different from past years. I think that we ought to recognize the fact that when we are talking about public information.
Could you close that door, please?
Thank you, Mr. Turk.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize the importance of when we disclose information to the public, that it's important that we do this in the open and transparent fashion as possible. In past years, and this would be the 9th year running now, that I've offered an amendment like this or similar to this, I've actually focused on circulation and put it out there first as saying that's more important than cost, and eventually adjusted that to indicate that, in fact, okay, we only have to have 2 papers of record on each thing. We can take it from a ballpark and put 3 potential papers in there. And the administration agreed in the past, and I will give them opportunity to challenge this if I'm misrepresenting, that in fact you can have more papers of record and only utilize 2 or even 1 if you so desire, thus being able to control the costs associated with that. Would the administration like to reply to that statement?
Through you, Mr. President, that is correct, and often it has been the case in the practice of the administration of the county to use papers other than the official papers, or in addition to the official papers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that additional piece of information. That is correct, including, I believe, the Democrat and Chronicle, correct, through the chair, through the President?
Through you, Mr. President, I don't recall a specific example of the Democrat and Chronicle being utilized, but I would not be surprised, and it in all likelihood is the case.
I'd point out to the rest of the body, it's been a while since they've been utilized, but they have been utilized in the past. But this time, I thought that it might be best to probably, give an attempt to break the logjam on, putting the DNC on the preferred list to include instead the Minority Reporter, as it is also a paper that charges a circulation fee, and it does have an established body, Circle H2. So with that said, and being that this is a newspaper that actually already takes in public notification from other counties as well, that they may actually be a significantly and positive income addition to the list of papers of record. I'm not going to belabor the point. For those of you who have been here for at least a year, which is all of us, you know that this is an important matter. It's also a matter that will cost the county not a penny. And I would urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to consider adding an additional paper, in this case the Minority Reporter, to the list of designated publications. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Legislator Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President, to the administration and my fellow legislators. I would like to add that I believe that the additional paper of the Minority Reporter reaches a different demographic. It also has a Spanish version to it as well, so it will begin to reach more of our population, our diverse population here in the County of Monroe. So in agreement with my colleague, I would like to support the amendment.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Roll. Legislator Boyce.
To the maker of the motion through the president. Now, my understanding is what? This would cost the county. Would it cost the county or wouldn't it cost the county?
If I'm recognized, it would not cost the county anything more than it wished to spend on any particular notification. The county controls to whom it sends a notification out for official purposes. It could take it to the Daily Record one time, the Minority Report another time, or even someone not on the list. So the county does have complete control over the cost of whatever associated with the public announcements.
Any further discussion? Legislator Felder.
Because to have the main papers where the notices go out is the Daily Record and Rochester Business Journal. 2 papers, not only in my neighborhood or my district, where I would dare to say a majority of Monroe County residents probably don't read. The Daily Record is essentially for lawyers, and the Business Journal is for people who have that mindset. So the average person probably doesn't read either one of those papers. So it makes sense. I mean, obviously, me being representing a good portion of African American Latinos in my district would prefer that you have a publication that reaches them, but also I think you need something that reaches more of the ordinary people. I'm saying this because it was an issue that came up last year with regards to a foreclosure, and we want to make sure that people are getting every opportunity to see what's going on before we make kind of decisions that would, in some cases, cost people their homes and other things. That we're making sure that information is really getting to people so they know when auctions are, they know when things are up for sale or whatever the case may be. We're going to make sure we're doing the right thing by people, by making sure, particularly when it's not going to cost us $1 million to do it. It's not. We're talking about even if the cost is a small amount of money.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Marinetti? No. Ms. Cayley? Yes. Mr. Alcoffer? No. Mr. Ansello? No. Mr. Broth? Yes. Ms. Boyce? No. Mr. Brew? No. Mrs. Conley? No. Mr. Delahanty? No. Mrs. DeFlorio? No. Mrs. Draw? No. Mr. Felder? Yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell? Yes. Ms. Harris? Yes. Mr. Hebert? No. Mr. Howland? No. Mr. Lightfoot? Si. Mr. Mafucci? Yes. Mr. Michike? Yes. Mr. Morelli? Yes. Mr. Moyo? Yes. Mr. Rockow? No. Mr. Shepard is excused. Ms. Taylor? No. Mr. Terp? No. Mr. Wilcox? Yes. Mr. Wilt? No. Mr. Zale? No. President Carbone?
No.
11 to 17, motion to amend fails.
Back to the original referral. Moved by Legislator DeFlorio, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion on the original referral? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll go to roll call vote.
Mr. Marinetti? Yes. Ms. Cayley? No. Mr. Alcoffer? Yes. Mr. Ansello? Yes. Mr. Broth? No. Ms. Boyce? Yes. Mr. Brew? Yes. Mrs. Conley? Yes. Mr. Delahanty? Yes. Mrs. DeFlorio? Yes. Mrs. Draw? Yes. Mr. Felder? No. Mr. Flagler Mitchell? No. Ms. Harris? No. Mr. Hebert? Yes. Mr. Howland? Yes. Mr. Lightfoot? No. Mr. Mafucci? No. Mr. Michike? Mr. Morelli? No. Mr. Moyo? No. Mr. Rockow? Yes. Mr. Shepard is excused. Ms. Taylor? Yes. Mr. Terp? Yes. Mr. Wilcox? No. Mr. Wilt? Yes. Mr. Zale? Yes. President Carbone?
Yes.
17 to 11, motion to adopt passes.
Next item.
Item number 22, referral 19-0023.
Moved by Legislator Brew, seconded by Legislator Wilt. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm sorry, Legislator Marinetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I just rise to acknowledge that Mr. Moore was serving as interim director during the recent airport renovation that was finished, I believe, in October. So I'd just like to rise and congratulate him through you, Mr. President, on a job well done. I applaud his management of the airport during this renovation project. And I'm proud to support this appointment, but I would just like to ask through you, Mr. President, if maybe Mr. Moore could just take a moment to describe to this body his involvement in that project.
Through the President, happy to do so. When I think of, looking back at the project, I kind of come up with two words, and that's partnership and coordination. And I think it really starts from the top down. We got to remember that we were given 31 days back in 2016 to put a package together as a part of this competition. And I remember meeting with the county executive at that point, and her directive was to make this airport better tomorrow than it is today, given that it's a 30-year-old facility. And so taking that directive and putting together the proposal, and then also, working with this body, with the 29 members of the county legislature, a former director, Mike Giardino, and I, when we would come here for approval for a lot of different elements of that project, this body was very supportive of the project moving forward, and I believe every single time we came here, our resolutions were passed unanimously. And also the Monroe County Airport Authority Board, the Honorable Cynthia Tolman and Honorable John Howland, 2 legislators, serve on that board. It's a 7-member board. And every time that we asked for approval to move ahead with certain elements of the project, that board was very favorable too. And so that's just a high-level partnership, but you got to look at the partnership among everybody that was involved in the actual construction and design phase of the project. The project had over 20 bid packages. It had 15 prime contractors and just about 50 subcontractors under the project labor agreement for the canopy and the terminal renovation. And so that is a massive amount of coordination that comes in. And it's not only coordination on the construction side, but it's also coordination with the users and tenants of the airport. And we can't forget that. You know, over 2.4 million people go in and out of that airport annually in 2018, about 52, 55 flights a day times 2. That's just departing flights. So it's about 104 flights coming and going every single day. You have all those passengers that expect a level of service and a level of comfort, but then you also have the tenants. You've got 6 airlines, 6 car rental companies, you have TSA, you have the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, you have FAA. They were great partners in coordinating this massive project while running an airport at the same time. And so I think that this legislature, it is my opinion, should feel very good that the staff at the airport is exceptional. And there's a lot of people there that don't get credit that deserve a lot of credit. The Bill Johnstons, the construction manager, Gary Gaskin, the engineer, Jennifer Hanrahan, marketing and public relations, Mary Ann Feddison in finance, Tim Woolston in operations. All of these people put in an incredible amount of time to get this project done within 2 years that we were given from the state of New York under the Department of Transportation and Governor Cuomo. Actual construction was about 18 months of that 2 years. And so, just kind of looking back, I just kind of go back to what I said earlier, and that is partnership and coordination in order to get this project done and make this airport better today than it was when the project first started. Thank you.
Congratulations. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries. There being no unfinished business, Legislator Marionetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. We stand adjourned until 6 p.m. Tuesday, March 12, 2019.